In August 2019, Bristol, Virginia, a small city nestled in the Appalachian Mountains, with a population of approximately 17,000, became the setting for a series of events that would shatter the life of a respected law enforcement family. Officer John Harrison, badge number 2275, had been serving with the Bristol Police Department for 10 years. At 38 years old, Harrison was a decorated officer who had received multiple commendations for his service, including the department's Medal of Valor in 2016 for rescuing a family from a house fire on Commonwealth Avenue. Living in a modest two-story house on Virginia Street, just 3 blocks from the police station, Harrison maintained a reputation as a dedicated law enforcement officer. His colleagues at the Bristol PD described him as methodical, thorough, and unwavering in his commitment to public safety. During his decade of service, Harrison had made over 500 arrests and maintained one of the highest case closure rates in the department. His wife, Linda Harrison, 35, a Maryland native who moved to Bristol after graduating from Virginia Tech with a degree in fine arts in 2007, initially supported her husband's career choice. Their son, Jake Harrison, born in 2011 at Bristol Regional Medical Center, was a third-grade student at Highland View Elementary School, where he excelled in mathematics and showed promising artistic abilities, much like his mother. By mid-2019, the dynamics of the Harrison family began to shift. John's assignment to the Night Shift Patrol Division, covering the hours from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., created a growing divide between him and his family. The Bristol PD had been experiencing staffing shortages, requiring officers to work additional overtime hours. Department records would later show that Harrison worked an average of 60 hours per week during this period, significantly more than the standard 40-hour schedule. Linda Harrison's daily routine became increasingly solitary. While Jake attended school, she spent her days maintaining their home at 1247 Virginia Street and attempting to pursue her photography interests through a small home studio she had set up in their converted garage. Her portfolio, later discovered during the investigation, revealed a talented eye for portrait photography, with dozens of unpublished works depicting the changing landscape of Bristol. The strain on their marriage manifested in subtle ways. Security footage from their neighbor's surveillance system would later show that John's patrol car rarely parked in their driveway before 7 a.m., and he often left again by 3 p.m. for overtime shifts. Bank records indicated that the couple had stopped their weekly dinner dates at their favorite restaurant, the Angry Italian on State Street, where they had traditionally celebrated their wedding anniversary every September 15th since 2009. John Harrison's colleagues at the Bristol PD noticed changes in his behavior during this period. Officer Sarah Martinez, his regular patrol partner, would later testify that Harrison began showing signs of stress, becoming increasingly withdrawn during their shifts. She noted that he stopped participating in the department's monthly family barbecues, events he had previously helped organize, citing exhaustion and the need to catch up on sleep. Department psychologist Dr. Robert Chen's confidential records, which would be subpoenaed during the subsequent investigation, revealed that Harrison had attended 2 mandatory counseling sessions in August 2019. During these sessions, he expressed frustration about the demanding nature of his work schedule, but dismissed concerns about its impact on his family life, insisting that Linda understood the importance of his duty to the community. The signs of deteriorating family stability accumulated, though Harrison either failed to notice or chose to ignore them. Linda's social media activity, archived by investigators, showed a marked decrease in family photos and an increase in solitary posts about photography and art. Her last family photo, posted on August 28, 2019, showed Jake at his school's open house. Notably absent was John, who was working an overtime shift that evening. Linda Harrison's personal diary, recovered later by investigators, revealed her deepening dissatisfaction with married life. Her entries detailed how her early aspirations had gradually diminished since her marriage to John in 2009. Before meeting him, she had worked as a freelance photographer for the Bristol Herald-Courier, covering local events and building a promising portfolio of artistic works. Documents from Virginia Tech's Fine Arts Department showed that Linda, then Linda Murphy, had graduated with honors in 2007. Her thesis project, Urban Landscapes in Transition, had received recognition from the university's art community. Professor, her former advisor, would later testify that Linda had been offered an internship with National Geographic in Washington, D.C., which she declined after meeting John Harrison during a local police charity event she was photographing. The transition from aspiring photographer to police officer's wife marked a significant shift in Linda's life trajectory. Bank statements from 2009 to 2019 showed that the couple's joint account primarily funded household expenses and Jake's education, with minimal investment in photography equipment or professional development. Linda's last professional camera purchase, a Canon EOS 5D Mark III, was dated 2012, shortly after Jake's birth. The catalyst for Linda's growing discontent emerged during the Bristol Fall Festival on November 2, 2019. Richard Matthews, 41, owner of Matthews Auto Repair on Commonwealth Avenue, attended the event where Linda was volunteering at the Highland View Elementary School booth. Matthews, a divorced father of two and longtime friend of John Harrison, had recently expanded his business, opening a second location in nearby Abingdon. Security cameras from the festival grounds captured multiple interactions between Linda and Richard throughout the evening. Their conversations, initially casual, focused on Linda's photography displayed at the school's fundraising booth. Matthews showed particular interest in her work, spending over an hour discussing composition techniques and artistic vision, according to witness statements from other volunteers. Linda's subsequent diary entries reflected a marked change in tone. She began comparing her current life to her former ambitions more frequently. A particularly telling entry dated November 15, 2019 read, "Reviewed my old college portfolio today. The girl who took those photos had such dreams. Now I barely touch my camera except for Jake's school events. John doesn't even notice the new prints I hung in the living room last month." The Harrisons' home security system logged John's increasingly irregular hours. During November 2019, he was absent from home 22 out of 30 nights, either on patrol duty or working overtime. Cell phone records showed minimal communication between the couple, with text messages limited to practical matters about Jake's school schedule and household maintenance. Richard Matthews' auto repair business records indicated that Linda's 2015 Toyota Camry began receiving regular maintenance at his shop starting in mid-November, despite the Harrison family historically using Bristol Central Auto Service for their vehicle maintenance. Shop surveillance footage showed Linda and Matthews engaging in lengthy conversations during these visits, their interactions growing progressively more personal. By the end of November, Linda's routine had noticeably changed. Neighbors' security footage showed her making regular trips to local coffee shops and art galleries during Jake's school hours, often carrying her camera equipment. She enrolled in an online photography course through the New York Institute of Photography on November 28, 2019, using her personal credit card rather than the joint account she shared with John. Cell phone records obtained during the subsequent investigation revealed a significant increase in communication between Linda Harrison and Richard Matthews. Between January 1st and January 15th, they exchanged 247 text messages and shared 42 phone calls, many occurring during late evening hours when John Harrison was on patrol duty. Credit card statements showed Linda Harrison making purchases at Victoria's Secret in the Bristol Mall on January 3, 2020, totaling $342.15. Security footage from Matthews Auto Repair captured Linda's Toyota Camry entering the business's private parking area after regular operating hours on multiple occasions, with timestamps indicating visits on January 5, 8, and 12, typically between 1 p.m. and 3 p.m. while Jake was at school. The affair's physical evidence accumulated through various sources. Hotel records from the Bristol Holiday Inn Express documented 2 separate bookings under Richard Matthews' name on January 10th and January 17th. Security cameras showed Linda entering the premises approximately 30 minutes after each check-in, using the side entrance near the parking lot. John Harrison's growing suspicions were documented in his personal notebook, recovered from his patrol car after the subsequent events. Entries beginning January 8th detailed observed changes in Linda's behavior, including new perfume, updated wardrobe, and increasingly frequent errands during afternoon hours. On January 15th, Harrison purchased a GPS tracking device from Bristol Electronics, according to the store's sales records. Department surveillance equipment logs showed that Harrison checked out a digital voice recorder from the evidence room on January 16, 2020, citing case number BPD-2020-0142, which was later discovered to be a fabricated case number. The tracking device was installed on Linda's Toyota Camry that same evening, as confirmed by garage security footage from the Harrison residence. The recordings obtained from the tracking device, which would later become crucial evidence, captured conversations between Linda and Richard during their meetings. In one particularly damning recording dated January 20th, Linda was heard saying, "John hasn't been a real husband to me for years. He's married to his badge, not me." Matthews's response included statements about their future together and discussions about potential travel plans. John Harrison's psychological deterioration became evident in his work performance. Bristol PD records showed that between January 16th and January 25th, he requested access to vehicle registration databases 17 times to track Matthews' movements. His patrol car's GPS data revealed unauthorized detours past Matthews' auto repair during his night shifts. On January 25, 2020, Harrison accessed the department's surveillance equipment room again, this time borrowing a high-resolution camera with zoom capability. Photographs found on the camera's memory card showed Linda and Richard meeting at various locations around Bristol, including intimate moments in Matthews' office at the auto repair shop. The betrayal's impact on Harrison's mental state was documented in his final personal notebook entries. Written in increasingly erratic handwriting, the last entry dated January 30th read, "My own friend. In my town. With my wife. They think I don't know. They think I'm blind. A cop who can't see what's happening in his own home. They'll see. They'll all see." Evidence collected after the events showed that Harrison began methodically planning his response to the betrayal. He purchased a prepaid cell phone from a convenience store in neighboring Johnson City on January 28th, made 3 withdrawals of $2,000 each from his personal savings account between January 25th to 31st, and conducted multiple searches on his home computer about untraceable methods of revenge and crimes of passion defense cases. February 2020 brought a dark turn to the affair between Linda Harrison and Richard Matthews. Cell phone records revealed their conversations shifted from romantic exchanges to discussions of a more sinister nature. On February 3rd, Matthews conducted multiple online searches about life insurance policies and inheritance laws in Virginia from his office computer at Matthews Auto Repair. Financial records showed that Richard Matthews's business was experiencing significant growth. Bank statements indicated the recent opening of his second location in Abingdon had generated a revenue increase of 45% compared to the previous year. A life insurance policy check revealed that John Harrison carried a $500,000 policy through the Bristol Police Department, with Linda Harrison listed as the sole beneficiary. The GPS tracking device on Linda's vehicle documented regular meetings between the lovers at various locations, including the unused office space above Matthews' Abingdon shop. Audio recordings from these meetings, later recovered by investigators, captured increasingly explicit discussions about their future. During a February 12th meeting, Matthews was recorded saying, "With my business expanding and your photography, we could build something real. The only thing standing in our way is your situation at home." Linda's personal diary entries from this period, retrieved from a password-protected file on her laptop, revealed her growing acceptance of these dangerous ideas. An entry dated February 15th read, "R talked about Jay's insurance policy again today. Said with that money and his business profits we could open a gallery in Asheville. I should be horrified, but I'm not. When did I become this person?" John Harrison's surveillance of the couple intensified. Bristol PD records showed he switched to the day shift on February 18th, citing personal reasons. This change allowed him to monitor Linda's movements more closely. His personal notebook entries became more detailed, documenting times, locations, and conversations overheard through the tracking device. Evidence gathered later showed Matthews began taking concrete steps toward their plan. Security footage from Bristol Hardware captured him purchasing heavy-duty tools and industrial-grade cleaning supplies on February 22nd. His internet search history showed queries about undetectable car accidents and brake line failures. Meanwhile, Linda's behavior suggested growing commitment to their scheme. Bank records showed she opened a separate savings account at First Tennessee Bank on February 25th, depositing $5,000 from her personal photography earnings. She also updated her passport on February 27th, listing her maiden name as her primary identification. The tracking device recorded a crucial conversation on February 29th at the Holiday Inn Express. Matthews outlined a detailed plan. The mountain roads are treacherous at night. One bad turn, and it looks like just another tragic accident. You'd be a grieving widow, free to move on after a respectable period. No one would question it. Unknown to the conspirators, John Harrison documented every detail. His police laptop, later seized as evidence, contained meticulous notes about their meetings, including photographs, audio recordings, and detailed timelines. He also began preparing his own counter-strategy, evidenced by ammunition purchases and range practice logs, showing increased frequency of visits to the Bristol police shooting range. Department security cameras captured Harrison spending long hours in the evidence room, studying case files of successful vehicular homicides. His search history revealed extensive research on crime scene investigation procedures and common mistakes made by perpetrators of premeditated murders. The psychological evaluation records from Dr. Robert Chen's final session with Harrison on February 26 noted, "Patient exhibits unusual calmness despite evident personal struggles. Discusses future in detached manner. Potential concerns about emotional stability warrant follow-up." However, Harrison never returned for his scheduled March appointment. The events of March 16, 2020, were meticulously reconstructed through traffic cameras, GPS data, and forensic evidence. At 11:23 p.m., John Harrison's police cruiser, unit number BPD-275, was recorded traveling north on Highway 381 toward the mountainous region outside Bristol. Department logs showed him officially off duty since 10 p.m., yet wearing his uniform and carrying his service weapon, a Glock 22.40 caliber pistol. Surveillance footage from Matthews Auto Repair captured Richard Matthews leaving his shop at 11:15 p.m. in his black 2019 Ford F-150 pickup truck. Cell phone records showed a final text message from Linda to Matthews at 11:18 p.m. "Remember the plan. Make it look convincing." GPS data from Matthews' truck indicated he followed a parallel route to Highway 381, maintaining a discreet distance from Harrison's vehicle. The confrontation occurred at 11:42 p.m. near mile marker 47, a particularly treacherous stretch of road with limited visibility and no guardrails. Tire mark analysis revealed that Matthews' F-150 attempted to force Harrison's cruiser off the road at a sharp bend. However, dash cam footage from the police cruiser, recovered later, showed Harrison anticipating the move and executing a defensive driving maneuver. The ensuing physical altercation was partially captured by the cruiser's dash cam. Harrison, demonstrating trained police combat techniques, engaged Matthews in what the forensic report would later describe as a calculated rather than panicked response. The medical examiner's report detailed that Matthews sustained 3 gunshot wounds, 2 to the chest and 1 to the head, all from Harrison's service weapon. At 11:57 p.m., traffic cameras recorded Linda Harrison's Toyota Camry approaching the scene. Evidence suggests she had been waiting nearby as a planned getaway driver. Crime scene photos showed Linda's vehicle stopped approximately 50 yards from the initial confrontation point. Forensic analysis of her cell phone revealed a draft message never sent. Accident completed. Meeting point B as discussed. The second phase of violence occurred between 12:03 a.m. and 12:17 a.m. on March 17th. Ballistic evidence indicated that Linda Harrison was shot twice with the same service weapon, once in the abdomen and once in the chest. The angle of the bullet trajectories suggested she was attempting to flee when the shots were fired. Harrison's subsequent actions demonstrated remarkable composure. He placed Matthews' body in the driver's seat of the F-150 and staged it partially off the road. Linda's body was positioned near her vehicle, creating the appearance of her arriving at the scene independently. Shell casings were collected, and Harrison's police training was evident in his methodical arrangement of the crime scene. At 12:45 a.m., Harrison made a call to dispatch reporting an attempted vehicular assault and shots fired in the line of duty. His voice, recorded in the dispatch log, remained steady as he described discovering his wife's body at what he claimed was a coincidental arrival at the scene. The first responding officers arrived at 1:03 a.m. Officer Sarah Martinez, Harrison's former partner, noted in her initial report that he appeared unusually composed for someone who had just discovered his wife's body. Crime scene photos showed Harrison providing a detailed statement to investigators, methodically pointing out what he claimed were signs of Matthews's aggressive driving and Linda's supposed unexpected presence. By 3 a.m., Harrison had returned to his home on Virginia Street. Neighbors' security footage showed him calmly entering his house, where 8-year-old Jake slept unaware of the night's events. Home security system logs recorded Harrison spending the next 2 hours in his garage, later discovered to be disposing of evidence including GPS tracking devices and audio recording equipment. The precision and calculated nature of Harrison's actions that night would later become crucial evidence in the prosecution's case, transforming what he attempted to portray as a defensive shooting into what investigators would ultimately prove was premeditated murder. The investigation into the deaths of Linda Harrison and Richard Matthews began on March 18, 2020, when Detective Mark Andrews from the Virginia State Police was assigned as lead investigator. With 15 years of experience in homicide investigations and no direct personal connections to the Bristol Police Department, Andrews was chosen to ensure objectivity in what was already becoming a sensitive case. Initial forensic analysis raised immediate red flags. The blood spatter patterns on Matthews' F-150 were inconsistent with Harrison's account of self-defense. Chief Medical Examiner Dr. Patricia Wong's preliminary report, dated March 19, noted that the angles of the gunshot wounds suggested the shooter was in a dominant position, not fighting for his life as Harrison had claimed. During the first interview on March 20th, Harrison's account contained several discrepancies. The transcript revealed his inability to explain why he was in uniform while off duty, or why he took that particular mountain route home. Security footage obtained from Bristol PD showed Harrison accessing the equipment room hours before the incident, though no equipment checkout was logged. Digital forensics proved crucial to the investigation. Detective Sarah Chen, specializing in cybercrimes, discovered deleted GPS data on Harrison's personal phone, showing he had tracked Linda's movements for weeks. A search warrant executed on March 22nd at Matthews Auto Repair uncovered surveillance equipment in Linda's regular parking spot, traced back to police department inventory. Harrison's behavior during subsequent interviews drew increasing scrutiny. Detective Andrews noted in his report dated March 25th, "Subject maintains unusually precise recall of certain events while claiming memory gaps in critical moments. Shows signs of rehearsed responses and strategic omissions." Video recordings of the interviews showed Harrison's right hand tapping specific patterns when discussing timeline details, a stress response noted by forensic psychologist Dr. Michael Rahman. The investigation uncovered a trail of premeditation. Financial records showed Harrison had withdrawn $6,000 from various ATMs in neighboring counties between March 1st and 15th. His internet search history revealed queries about gunshot residue removal and crime scene contamination techniques. A receipt from Bristol Electronics indicated the purchase of surveillance equipment using cash on March 10th. A breakthrough came on March 27th when a highway maintenance worker discovered a plastic bag in a drainage ditch near the crime scene. It contained a GPS tracker and digital voice recorder with serial numbers matching Bristol PD inventory. The recordings provided damning evidence of Harrison monitoring the affair and planning his response. Harrison's colleagues began noticing inconsistencies in his previous behavior. Officer Rodriguez submitted a report detailing Harrison's unusual interest in cold cases involving staged accident scenes during the weeks before the incident. Evidence room logs showed him accessing files on vehicular homicide investigations without case-related justification. By March 30th, District Attorney Jennifer Morton had enough evidence to convene a grand jury. The prosecution's case included Harrison's calm demeanor cracked during his final interview on April 2nd. When confronted with the recovered surveillance recordings, he exhibited his first emotional response. The interview transcript recorded his statement. "They deserve to know what it feels like. To be watched. To be hunted. To lose everything." This outburst became a turning point in the investigation. District Attorney Morton filed formal charges on April 5, 2020. The indictment included 2 counts of first-degree murder, evidence tampering, and abuse of official capacity. The prosecution's theory painted a picture not of a police officer acting in self-defense, but of a calculating individual who used his law enforcement training to plan and execute a double homicide. The investigative findings shattered the Bristol Police Department's morale and led to a comprehensive review of department protocols regarding equipment access and psychological evaluations. The case would soon move to its final phase in the criminal justice system, where Harrison would face judgment for his actions on that fatal March night. The trial of John Harrison began on July 6, 2020, at the Bristol Circuit Court. The defense was led by experienced attorney Robert Clark, known for his work with law enforcement officers. District Attorney Jennifer Morton represented the prosecution, methodically building the case against the former police officer. Harrison's defense was built on two key arguments. First, his actions were presented as necessary self-defense against a premeditated attempt on his life. Second, his attorneys argued that he was in a state of severe emotional distress caused by prolonged stress and his wife's betrayal. Defense psychiatrist Dr. Alan Fisher testified, "The months-long surveillance of his unfaithful spouse and the discovery of a plot to murder him led Mr. Harrison to an acute psychological crisis. His actions were the result of severe psychological trauma." On August 14, 2020, after 3 days of deliberations, the jury reached a verdict. Harrison was found guilty of second-degree murder for both victims. Judge Michael Donovan, considering Harrison's impeccable 15-year police service as a mitigating factor, but taking into account the abuse of official position, sentenced him to 25 years in prison without the possibility of parole. During sentencing, Harrison maintained his characteristic composure. His only comment was, "I defended my life from people who planned to kill me. The system protected the killers and punished the police officer." Harrison's 8-year-old son Jake was placed in the custody of his aunt, Sarah Harrison, who moved with him to Richmond, away from the tragic events in Bristol. The Harrison case led to significant changes in the Bristol Police Department, including stricter psychological monitoring of officers and enhanced control over police equipment usage. The story of a respected police officer's tragic fall became a case study in police academies as an example of how professional skills can be used for malicious purposes. The trial revealed the full extent of the tragedy: Linda's affair with Richard, their plot to murder John, and his brutal retaliation against both. Expert witnesses detailed how Harrison's law enforcement training had enabled him to nearly perfect a double homicide, while digital evidence exposed weeks of surveillance and preparation. The case became a landmark in Virginia law enforcement, leading to departmental reforms in officer monitoring and equipment oversight. It also sparked a broader discussion about the psychological toll of police work and the need for better support systems within law enforcement agencies. The Bristol Police Department established new protocols for psychological evaluations and equipment tracking, while the Virginia State Police reviewed their procedures for investigating officer-involved incidents. The tragic story of the Harrison family became a cautionary tale about the devastating consequences of betrayal, surveillance, and revenge within law enforcement circles.